Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the I.M.A.G.E TV podcast on 98.3 The Vibe. I.M.A.G.E show, early morning edition. And I've got another great group on the show with me in the house. We've got Pastor Bell to my right, and then we've got Kyle Horn to my left. Now, ladies and gentlemen, most of you don't know Kyle Horn. This is actually his first time on the I.M.A.G.E TV podcast. But Kyle Horn is the director and founder of the I.M.A.G.E Job Honor Awards. And Kyle, it is a pleasure to have you on the show with us. Now, Pastor Bell, you've never been on here with the combination of Kyle Horn. This guy has great communication skills. I mean, he came into prison when I was actually in prison and was able to speak to all the guys at North Central Correctional Facility. Kyle, it is a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend.
A real pleasure to finally be with you, Robert. I've seen the show so many times, and I'm glad to be sitting here with you.
Well, that's good. I'll tell you, hey, this day is special. We had a national reporter named Chloe from Scripps fly in to do a story on us. I mean, the I.M.A.G.E program is in full effect. Now, Kyle, most people don't know about the I.M.A.G.E Job Honor Awards. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. You know what? Several years ago, I was working in the staffing industry, and I was deeply affected by the struggles of people coming in looking for work who had barriers to employment, primarily prior criminal convictions and disabilities. And I knew that a lot of these people could make a terrific contribution in the workforce. And yet, when we would submit those candidates to employers, the employers would consistently take a pass. So I knew that the huge problem that these individuals were facing was the fact that there was negative bias out there. And I thought, what can we do to overcome that negative employer bias? Well, one weekend, I had the idea for the Job Honor Awards. And the notion was that we would have contests and select top honorees of people who would overcome their barriers, whether it's criminal convictions or disability, and who had made a terrific impact in the workforce, and then share those videos with employers. And so that's how we're kind of working on the demand end of the equation. I think what you're doing primarily is on the supply end, people coming out of incarceration. Well, we're working on the demand end, the business community, trying to convince them that people are deserving of a second chance and that indeed it's a good business move to do it. Most
definitely. Pastor Bell, it's always a pleasure to have you in the house with us. We've talked a lot about black on black crime on a lot of these podcasts. We've had a great gentleman. I don't know if you guys had the chance to hear Brother Tony Muhammad, a.k.a. Baby Tony. This guy, he did 14 years. He's working now, giving back in the community, but he was a great speaker. He was able to really break down the educational process of gangs and, where his life was and just talk all about the whole incarceration deal. Now, Kyle, I know that you also started your program as a vision and an idea, and that you are
That's
also
right.
A man of God.
That's right.
Could you talk about that?
Absolutely. I think that in the old days, I probably would not have cared really about individuals who were struggling in life. But, it's not me, but Christ in me. God put that desire to help. And I've always had a place in my heart for people who are marginalized. And but during my experience in the staffing industry, God really awakened that in me. And put in me just a fire to help people transform their lives who want to do so.
And Pastor Bell, I know that you're no stranger of guys coming to you who are looking to transform their lives.
Right. Yes, we have guys that are coming sometimes out of the penal system. And then we have men who've had children with women and they're not in a romantic relationship anymore. And so this struggle between those two sometimes can be passed on to the child. And our biggest issue to us is to make sure that they understand the value and the influence that they both hold as they work together, partnering as a team to bring that child up in an environment that gives that child all the confidence and allows that child to feel like they're a product of two wonderful people.
Yeah, that's great. Well, talking about Job Honor Awards. So let me understand this right. Guys that are actually on the job working, okay, they say get nominated by your company?
Actually, they get nominated by someone else in the field. Often, it's nonprofit organizations like yours that have worked with those individuals, and they become great success stories, and they want to sing their praises. So they will nominate that individual to America's Job Honor Awards. Now, in each state in which we operate, each year we select the top 2 honorees from 2 categories. First of all, individuals who've overcome significant employment barriers like prison. And secondly, employers who do a laudable job of giving people a second chance. And once we've selected our top 4 honorees, we go out into the field and we shoot videos that essentially tell their story. And then we share those videos with the employer community, typically at annual meetings of state chambers of commerce, things of that nature. So we're in a room packed with business leaders. We show this video, 4 or 5 minutes long, and invariably it results in deeply emotional standing ovations. We're winning the hearts and minds of these employers because we're putting a human face on marginalized people who they never really have thought about. And once they see these stories, it changes their opinion. And in fact, 75% of employers who have experienced our videos say that they are more likely to hire someone who's overcome a barrier, including prior incarceration. So that's how we're making our impact.
Well, that's great. And that just shows that, look, the world isn't perfect. I mean, people have made mistakes. Some people just didn't get caught for the mistakes that they made.
Absolutely.
And so it's good to see companies taking advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think increasingly companies are recognizing that. And also one thing that's helpful is society appreciates businesses who give people a second chance. You know, increasingly people want to do business with companies that have social conscience. You know, companies that are willing to have a workforce that looks like the community. And in point of fact, there are people in our community who have done time. And as you point out, they got caught. Maybe the rest of us didn't, you know.
That's right.
But so I think we're trying to awaken that empathy in the employers and essentially overcome. You know, as a nation, we claim to embrace rehabilitation, and yet too often we reject the rehabilitated. So obviously from a faith context, I often go to the prodigal son. His elder brother was so full of his own impressions of his own goodness that he couldn't celebrate the return of his brother. And yet his father embraced him and said, "My son who was dead is alive again." And so it seemed to me that as a nation, we had developed the spirit of the elder brother, self-righteous and unforgiving. So we're challenging that with true stories, inspiring stories.
All right. Pastor Bell, I told you that this man knew definitely his stuff and was a good communicator.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it very much. I think it's really something to look at it from the faith context, because I think about my mother and my father, 2 African-American people who left the backwoods of Tennessee during the second migration to come to Iowa. And she ends up being an industrial cook for 26 years at the VA hospital and 16 years at Drake. And my dad was just a hard-working deacon working at Armstrong, which eventually became Pirelli, and now it's Titan. And he actually worked for all 3 of those places. And it's interesting to me how my mother and dad could turn the hearts of children, even from a kitchen, my mother, and my dad from a factory. Many of the young men that he helped get jobs ended up coming and joining the church. Many of them did not have fathers in their lives, but my dad took that on. And then my mother, she's going to what they call the Black House at Drake, cooking during the holidays, feeding those kids the same type country cooking that she fed us. And so they ended up at our house on Sundays. I'm like, how many people are you going to feed? But the thing that it taught me was that all people have intrinsic value and worth.
Amen.
Nobody's more or less than anybody else.
That's great.
Treat people with dignity and respect, and man, they'll respond.
That's correct. Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned into 98.3 The Vibe Special Edition Early Morning Show. Robert Pate. And we've also got Kyle Horn and Pastor Bell. We got to go to a commercial break, but we'll be back after these messages. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, on the Image Show, 98.3 The Vibe Special Edition Image TV podcast. We've got another guest with us right now from the ACLU of Iowa. Her name is Veronica Fowler, and she is the communications director for the ACLU of Iowa. Veronica, it is a pleasure to have you on the Image Show now. She is joining us by video call, so please try to bear with us out there. I believe all the communication should come in pretty clearly. Veronica, are you out there?
I am here. Houston, I am here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, hey, it is a pleasure to have you on the Image Show and the Image TV podcast. I think that this is very important. We've got someone here from the ACLU of Iowa. First of all, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, your position, and kind of what you do? Take us into a little bit about the ACLU and your daily duties.
Sure. Well, I'll talk mainly about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union of Iowa. And the ACLU now is celebrating nationally its 100th anniversary. It's been around 100 years. And the Iowa affiliate, as we call ourselves, was established in 1935, one of the first in the country. And basically what we do is protect people's fundamental rights. We do a lot of work in free speech and First Amendment work, but we also do a lot with equal protection, racial discrimination, gender discrimination, LGBTQ discrimination. I basically say that our job is to make sure that all Iowans are treated as fairly and equally as possible, that everybody gets a fair shot, that the criminal justice system is truly colorblind. And so that's what we do. And then my job within that, I joke that I'm a cheerleader. I take all the good work that our staff does, including our staff lawyers. We file a lot of lawsuits against the government to protect people, make sure that people are treated equally. And I am the cheerleader. I am the megaphone. I'm the one who tries to get the word out.
Well, that's great. Can you tell us what are some of the things that you guys do and what are some of the things that you don't do? I know that there's been a lot of question about the ACLU. What do they do? How can I refer them? What are some things that they don't do? What would it be a waste of time to refer someone to you for? Because I know that you probably get a lot of that.
Right, we do. And we're always flattered and glad when people reach out to us and see us as basically the protector of the little guy, as a little person, and somebody who makes sure, again, that everybody has equal rights under the law. So that said, we're not legal aid. Legal aid does an amazing job of helping individuals with their particular legal needs, but we're not that. We take just a handful of cases every year, and we very carefully choose cases that will move the law forward to make the law better for all sorts of people. For example, we just recently filed a lawsuit on behalf of protesters who've been protesting police brutality and racial profiling this summer. Some of them are affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement. And they were demonstrating peacefully, and they ended up, the police came onto the scene. They started grabbing people in the crowd. The scene got chaotic because people didn't know why they were being arrested. They were protesting peacefully, and they'd also seen in previous evenings really brutal police behavior. So they were worried, yelling, screaming, crying. The police it turned out they were trying to arrest people that they thought were involved with damaging a police car the night before, but they weren't telling people that. Anyway, so...
Okay, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. I mean, that's some good stuff. I'm listening.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and so these peaceful protesters were arrested. And then the Iowa State Patrol basically just said, you can't come anywhere in the capital area for 6 months, a year. Some people got written letters and said that they would be charged with a law that basically didn't exist. They were cited Iowa code, and that part of the code only talks about penalties for criminal trespass, but they weren't charged with criminal trespass. So it was just basically like the Iowa State Patrol had decided to make up a law and a punishment And so we brought the lawsuit on behalf of some of these protesters who were saying, if we can't go to the state capitol for a year, we can't lobby legislators. We can't join protests. There was also key leaders within the movement. So basically, it has silenced and moved away from the center of power where people are listened to, these protesters. And so we have filed a lawsuit on their behalf.
Okay, so I guess one of my questions is, so there's people in the county jail listening, there's people in Mitchellville right now listening to the Image show, and there's people all over the country that want to know, okay, Iowa, they were the last state to vote for the felon voting rights to be restored. What part have you played in that?
Well, it's been a team effort, absolutely. Groups like the NAACP, the ACLU, and a lot of faith-based groups have been working long and hard for the last 10 years that Iowa has had this draconian law where if you had a felony conviction for a while, it was even if you had just an aggravated misdemeanor, you were stripped of your voting rights for life. And the only way you could get them back is if you applied individually to the governor. And that wasn't an easy process, and it wasn't clear. We fought to make the process easier, but a lot of people ended up hiring a lawyer to try to fill out the forms, and that's just not right. So we have been lobbying the legislature. We have been working with the governor, and finally, yay, this summer, the law changed, and now most Iowans with a felony conviction can vote once you've done the terms of your sentence.
Okay, and now staying right there where you're at, most Iowans can vote. This is where I had a problem. This is where I had a problem with the policy that was put into play with the restoration of felon voting rights. Is the fact that if you're on parole or probation, you can't vote. Okay, and in Iowa, okay, and now this doesn't follow suit with all the other states, okay? Now, how many African Americans do we have on parole or probation in the state of Iowa? If you look at that percentage, and I'm not asking you to come up with it right now.
Well, actually, I could probably guesstimate because until the executive order, 1 in 10 adult Black people could not vote because of a felony conviction.
Okay.
It was huge. And so that gives you an idea of the scope of the problem.
Right. Now, I have Kyle Horn from the America Job Honors Award. He's on the Image show with us. He's in the studio. I also have Pastor Ben Bell, with me. He is in the studio right now, and they have some questions, basically that they want to ask you. I'll start off with Pastor Bell. He's been waiting patiently.
Sure. Veronica, thank you so much for the work that you do, and we do celebrate it, and we are sure that you are busy most of the time. Your brain's probably ticking while you're trying to sleep. However, I would say this, that it would be wonderful if guys who are in some of the programs and population that Kyle and I represent could have someone like you come in and give a once over on how guys can even lobby for themselves and buddy up with other individuals and learn how it really works, because sometimes people don't realize the kind of power that they have, because we know the government only recognizes power. Power comes in two forms: organized people and organized money. And I tell those guys, you got to learn how to speak up for yourself, because as I often say, and people laugh, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you got to figure it out.
We would love to. I mean, that's the big challenge now that we've had a really positive change in the law,
right?
Is to get people to know that they can vote and relay to them how important that is. There's just a news story that came out today that there's, because of the law, there's now an estimated 35,000 people who are eligible to vote. And of that, only 2,500 people have registered. And of course, a lot more can register. You can register on election day as well. But we would love to change those numbers. So maybe, yes, let's absolutely connect after the show, and let's find ways to let people know about their rights.
Thank you so much.
And now I want to move to Kyle Horn. Kyle, he has a question for you, Veronica, as well.
Hello, Veronica.
Hi.
Say, my question is this. As we both know, there are people out there who believe that if you've broken the law and been convicted of a felony, there should be a price for that. And that price should include a lifetime of ineligibility to vote. What would you say to those individuals in defense of restoring voting rights?
Well, a lot of people use that argument. And the thing is, it's hardly as though people are getting off scot-free. If you've been convicted of a felony, you are paying for the crime. You are doing the time. You are being punished. You are doing your sentence. So it's not as though somehow there's not a penalty. We would argue that voting is a fundamental constitutional right, and you should not be stripped of that ever. In fact, the ACLU believes no states, and some states don't, they never take your voting rights away from you if you have a felony conviction. And it's important because the way it is now is confusing, among other things, not to mention unfair. But study after study shows that stripping people of their voting rights does nothing to keep our communities safer. Instead, it does just the opposite. It makes people feel isolated from their communities. It makes them feel like outsiders, like they're already being penalized, and they don't get to participate in their communities. And that is key to preventing repeat offenses and allowing people to become fully invested in their communities and vote for their children's school board and who's on the city council, who's going to be the county attorney. When you give people that power and that voice, they respond. And so allowing people with felony convictions helps everybody. It makes communities stronger and safer, and it makes democracy stronger.
Couldn't agree more. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Veronica, you just stand by. We've got Kyle Horn, Pastor Bell, and we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, don't change that dial. You're locked and loaded into love. 98.3 The Vibe Special Edition Image TV Podcast. We'll be back after these messages. We've got the ACLU of Iowa in the house. Don't go away. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. You're tuned into the Image Show. Boy, we've got a lot of great entertainment going on this morning. We've got Kyle Horn with the America Job Honors Award. We've got Pastor Bell. We've got Veronica with the ACLU. We're having a lot of fun this morning, and we're learning a lot. Now, Veronica, are you still out there?
I still am here. Yes.
All right. We want to learn a little bit more about the process. For those that are looking to maybe go through the process of voting, of getting registered, can you take us through that process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
because there are some people right now, and if you're watching this right now and you're wondering, how do I get out there and vote? I want to do it, but I just need that push. Veronica is right here to tell you how to do it.
Well, there's two. Basically, you can vote in Iowa now because of a change of the law in August if you have discharged your sentence. That means you're not incarcerated, not on probation, parole, supervised release, subject to a special sentence, and you were not convicted of one of the homicide crimes under Iowa Code Chapter 707, like voluntary and involuntary manslaughter, manslaughter by vehicle, and some others. So as long as you've done those, it's not that crime, and you've done your sentence, you can vote. You don't need to do anything else. You don't have to pay off any fees and fines. You don't have to make any special paperwork. You can vote. And some people, if you've been through the criminal justice system, you're a little leery. I'm like, I think I can, but I'm not going to put my neck out there and get in trouble for it. If you have any questions, you can do a couple things. Call your county auditor or email them or visit them. Or go to our website, www.youcanvoteiowa.org, and find out more. So basically, as long as you meet the other requirements of voting, if you're a U.S. citizen, you're at least 18, you're an Iowa resident, you can vote. And your voice is so important. So the first thing you need to do if you want to vote is get registered to vote. And you can do that online if you have a driver's license. Or a non-operator ID, or if you already, so you can vote. You can get registered. Also, on election day, you can just walk into the polls. You'll find your polling place online, or call the county auditor, or ask around in your neighborhood. Go to the polling place and say, I want to vote. I'm not registered to vote. I had a previous, if you don't mind sharing, have a previous felony conviction, but I'm done with that. So I want to vote. And they will get you set up. They will get you registered to vote. You do need to we have voter ID in Iowa. So bring whatever identification you have. If you have a passport, if you have a driver's license, non-operator ID, any kind of government ID that has a photo on it will prove that you are who you are. And then you might also have to prove, if you don't have a driver's license or a voter registration card, that you live where you live. So even if it's just on your phone, any kind of indication of any bills that you've paid to your residence usually work. But don't get too hung up on that. Bring what you have. But even if you don't have all of those things, another registered voter in your precinct can vouch for your identity. So you could even bring along somebody who has voted, spouse, friend, family member, and they can vouch for your identity. Worst case scenario, you don't have any of those things. You can cast what's called a provisional ballot. And so you cast this ballot, and then they will count it as soon as you show up, usually within 48 hours, with whatever ID is required. So
you said that's called a what?
A provisional ballot.
Provisional ballot. Okay.
Right. It's a ballot that will be counted if you show the identification that you didn't have on election day. So basically, if all of this is very confusing to you, just show up at your polling place and say, I have a felony conviction, but I understand I can vote now. I want to register. Tell me how to do it. And they will take care of you. 9 times out of 10, poll workers are really nice and helpful and wonderful.
That's great. Now, unfortunately, most people, when it comes to jumping through hoops and filling stuff out, especially with the pandemic now, the use of things being virtual, people just get lost. It's almost like speaking Chinese or a different language to a lot of people, And so I think that's a part of, why you don't see so many people voting now so you're saying that to simplify this, you can just go to a voter's registration booth nearby. How do you know where some of these places are at?
Well, one thing you can always do is call or email. If you don't want to go there, you can go or call or email your county auditor. So just, Well,
even when you say county auditor, the first thing a person thinks is, who's my county auditor? How do I know who that is?
Right. And whatever county you're living in, just Google or find, or if you're a library. There is also, by the way, here's one thing that you can do, because I'm glad you asked that, because we have been concerned about that. Nothing else. Here's a number and a place you can call. The Johnson County Auditor is willing to answer questions for anyone on the state. So you can email them at elections@cojohnson.iaus or call them at 319-356-6004.
There you go, Veronica. That's what we needed right there. Now that was very helpful.
Give it to you again then.
Okay.
You can email elections@co.johnson.ia.us, or you can call them at 319-356-6004.
Okay. Now I've got Pastor Bell here. He's got another question in his holster that he wants to let loose. Pastor Bell?
Yes, Veronica, what is the age group that you folks are most inundated with complaints or a need for services as it pertains to the challenges of being registered to vote? Do you happen to know what age group it seems to be the most challenged?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you define challenged, but I think one of the biggest areas where there are opportunities are younger voters. It's that age group 18 to about 25. Those are the ones who haven't yet been convinced that their vote really counts, that it is really important. And so getting those people to vote is really, really, really critical. And that's probably the hardest group to reach and the hardest group to convince of the importance of their vote.
Awesome. Thank you for that, because I am going to probably use the next few days asking people how old they are and saying, have you registered to vote? I am going to be their new best friend so they can get in this process.
It's true. I mean, it's a truism, right? Like, it's like a cliche. People are like, every vote counts. Well, it really, really, really does. And I do think we're going to have record voter participation this year because so many people are concerned about what is happening in our country. And I'm not glad that we're all at a point where we have to be so concerned, but it is nice to see that people are rallying and voting. And each vote is important. And again, even if you're confused, I mean, there's been so much news about lawsuits and absentee votes. Really, all you need to do is find your polling place, ask the people who live around you where you vote, and find your polling place and show up with whatever ID you can pull together and just tell them you want to vote and how do you do it.
All right. Now, I've got another question here for you, Veronica. It's from Kyle Horn from the I.M.A.G.E Honors Award. Kyle, can you tell us your question there?
Absolutely, Veronica. Yeah, we understand that the restoration of voting rights that we're now experiencing came about as a result of an executive directive from Governor Reynolds. And some I've heard raise the concern that an executive directive is not as durable as legislative action, because what an executive giveth, another executive can taketh away. And in fact, I think we actually observed that in Iowa in our history.
Yes.
And so at any rate, my question is this. Does the Iowa ACLU intend to continue to lobby the Iowa legislature so that we can enact this as a law, hopefully more solid and durably?
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful question. Because yes, this fight isn't done. We need to change the law permanently in Iowa because, as you said, one governor can, give the right to vote to all these people, and then another governor can come in and take it away. So we need to change the Iowa Constitution so that the fundamental right to vote after a felony conviction is embedded in the Constitution so that it's super clear. So we need to do that. We also need to change the laws as well so that people can vote even when they're in prison, even before they've done their probation and parole. The fight is not over. The right to vote should never be taken away from you. You're fundamental. You are still a member of this democracy, and it should never be taken away from you. I would argue that people who've been through the criminal justice system have seen some things. They understand how the system works and the system doesn't work. And stripping those people out and not allowing them to participate in democracy is just a travesty. So anyway, we're going to continue the fight so that yet more people can vote. And a constitutional amendment is one of those. And the ACLU, the NAACP, the League of Latin American Citizens, LULAC, and many others are going to continue this fight.
Great. Thank you very much.
Now, one of the concerns that I have, and I also speak for a lot of my fellow brothers and sisters, is that, again, that issue with the fact that there's a stipulation for people who are on parole and probation that they cannot vote. I think that is wrong. That doesn't follow suit with the rest of the states. So why does Iowa have that stipulation, and are we going to fight to get that policy taken off?
Yes, we are. We absolutely are. That is on our checklist to try to get changed. And you're right. It's different from state to state. Iowa has been the very last country in the state to make this change because all the other states are slowly realizing how important it is to invest people in their communities to allow them to participate in democracy. And so we will continue to try to get that changed. It's going to be a long, slow process, but hey, we have been around since 1935, and we're going to be around, I hope, until, another years.
Veronica, I've got a question for those that are out there listening and tuned into the Image Show right now, the I.M.A.G.E TV podcast, and they didn't get a chance to write anything down, but they figured that this was really interesting. Is there a telephone number that you can give out? Is there a website? Is there some information that you can give about the ACLU for people that may have more questions about some of the stuff that we talked about?
If you have any questions about voting after a felony, please go to the website we just created, special for this, www.youcanvoteiowa.org. And you can always email us questions at info at aclu-ia.org. And so we will do everything we can to help you. So I'll just repeat those.
Is there a telephone number?
We don't do phone intake, so that is not a great way to do it. If you do,
Okay.
we do have a phone number for you if you have voting questions, though. And
Okay.
a phone number for voting questions would be that Johnson County Auditor's Office, and that is 319-356-6004.
Okay, now off the subject of even voting, if there's someone that wants to utilize the ACLU services, if there's been an injustice done or they've been, assaulted by some type of injustice and they want to contact the ACLU, they may be in prison, they may feel like they have had some rights violated, or they may be just in society and need the ACLU's assistance. What would be the best way to get in touch with the ACLU for those matters?
So we ask that people contact us either by writing us, or if they don't have access to computers, or emailing us. The email is legal.program@aclu-ia.org. So they can email that, or they could write us just on plain old paper to the ACLU of Iowa, 505 Fifth Avenue, suite number 808, Des Moines, Iowa, 50309.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for your time and everything that you've had to give this morning. Thank you very much, Veronica.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you so much for allowing to talk more about this and get the word out. So we just encourage everybody, no matter if you've had a felony, you haven't had a felony, please get out there and vote. It is so incredibly important.
All right. Well, we're about out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for tuning in to the Image Show on 98.3 The Vibe and the Image TV podcast. From the Image Show, the studio, Veronica Fowler. We've got my guy to the right, Pastor Bell, and Kyle Horn for the America Job Honor Awards. We've had a wonderful time this morning. Thank you very much all. Thank you all for being a part of this.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Love being here, man, always.
Right on, Pastor Bell. And Veronica, I understand that this is your first time, but about this time, it's a wrap.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk on and on about this.
No.